Hello and welcome to one and all. So we are moving on to the next chapter, agricultural sector, Unit 5, agricultural sector. So there are three sectors in any country, isn't it? Primary sector, which is associated with the agricultural sector, secondary sector, that is the industrial sector, and the third one, the tertiary sector. So we will be dealing with each of these sectors in detail from now onwards. Okay. So starting with the primary sector, that is the agricultural sector. Okay. So now for what is the first one is the importance of agriculture in Indian economy. So we all know that right from the beginning, we have been seeing that India is an agricultural country. Isn't the primary sector occupies the dominant position in our country. So agriculture happens to be the backbone of Indian economy. Even though we have moved on or trying to move to the other sectors, even though the contribution made by the tertiary sector is more nowadays to the GDP of the country, still agriculture occupies a very pivotal role in the development of our country. So whatever any problem happens in our agricultural sector even today, if there is any uh, problem in the production comes down in the agricultural sector, that immediately reflects in the other factors of the economy, like in the form of inflation. So many other factors are affected in the country. So to put it simply, it immediately reflects in the progress of the economy. So India is even today is very much an agricultural country, and agriculture is the backbone of the Indian economy. So let us see why we are saying agriculture is very important to the Indian economy. Okay. So the first one is the what is the share of agriculture in GDP or GVA. So earlier uh, it was GDP. Now the Central Statistical Organization is have changed the term GVA. The concept is the same. The method is only different. GDP is the gross domestic product. GVA means the gross value added. So the any commodity goes through the different processes from agricultural sector. The raw material, if it is going through the process in the industrial sector, certain amount of value is added, isn't it? And again, it is go through to the tertiary sector, some more value is added. That is the meaning of gross value added. Okay. So whatever it is, the meaning is the same. So what is the share of agriculture in GDP, or currently, which is the same thing, is called as the GVA. So as far as the share of agriculture is concerned, initially in India, the that is at the time of First World War. So the contribution made by agriculture was nearly two-thirds of national income. That is, let me put it here, whatever the time, and this one represents the contribution of agricultural sector. Okay. So it was two-thirds of the national income to the GDP of the country. This is during the period of First World War. And then in 1951, it was 56.5% of GDP. Still, more than half the percent of the GDP was contributed by the agricultural sector in 1951. And let's fast forward the recent ones. 2014-15, it reduced to, so here, it is decreasing, no doubt about it. So still it is reduced to 8.2% 2% of GVA. Now, nowadays it is called as GVA. I mentioned you what it is. And 2019-20, it's still reduced to 16.5% of GVA. Okay. Even though from two-thirds of national income to nearly 16.5% of GVA, you might be seeing, oh, I mean, the share of agriculture is dwindling. Why we are saying the share of agriculture is more? Why agriculture is important in the share? But there are two things. One is, this is the share, only the percentage wise is decreasing because it is mainly because of the development made in the other sectors. It is not that agriculture, as it is only you take the agricultural sector, the share percentage share is decreasing. This percentage share is decreasing because you are talking in relative. Relatively, the contribution made by the other sectors have increased. So that's why the percentage wise, the contribution made by the agriculture sector to the GVA has decreased. That is one thing. And another thing, even though you this data, these figures, you compare it to the developed countries. So what is the contribution made by the agricultural sector in the developed countries to their national income? So compared to developed countries, so when you look at the, when you find it that, like for example, USA, UK and all, there is, it's only 1% to 2%. So when you see this 1% to 2%, automatically you should understand that agriculture occupies a major role in our country, isn't it? Nearly, even today, nearly 17% of the national income is being contributed by the agricultural sector. Okay, so that is the first evidence that agriculture is important in our country, or India is still an agricultural country. Okay, then the second importance is, what is the share of agriculture in providing employment? Providing employment. So providing employment, agriculture provides employment. Directly, people are related to employed in agriculture, depending on agriculture, or indirectly also, most of them are depending on agriculture. Indirectly, when I say, like people depending on allied activities of agriculture, animal husbandry, forestry, fishery, there are so many other things are there. So indirectly also, several people are depending upon agriculture. Again, when you look at the contribution, so the percentage of people depending on agriculture. So it was 70% in 1951. Okay, this is in 70% in 1951, which reduced to 59% in 2001. Okay, so you can clearly you can see that it was 70% in 1950. 59% mean it, the percentage wise it has reduced. But then the same thing, if you look in absolute numbers, the number of people instead of percentages, if you are checking on the absolute number of people depending on agriculture, it was 98 million in 1951, which actually increased to 235 million in 2001. Understand now? It has, even though percentage wise it was decreased to 59%, but from 98 million it has increased to 235 million people are depending on agriculture. Okay, so that shows that still agriculture occupies the major source of livelihood for the majority of the sections of the population in our country. Okay, but As for the current data, if you want, it is approximately 43% of the population is depending on agriculture. Okay, this again, even this current data, even when you check with the current data, if you compare it with the developed countries, compared to the developed countries, so where it is 2% to 3% in UK and USA. The remaining 97%, they are all depending on the secondary sector or the tertiary sector. And when you take France and Australia, it is somewhere around 6% to 7% in some of the examples. France and Australia. So again, when you check these data, current one, we can, and also this one points out that most of the people in our country are directly or indirectly, they are depending on agriculture for their livelihood. Okay, so that is also another evidence to show that India is an agricultural country. Okay, then the third importance is, what is the importance of agriculture for the development of industries in our country? Or in other words, even the industries in our country also, they are depending on agriculture for their development. In what way they are depending on agriculture? Because most of the industries in our country, they are the agro based industries, that is they depend on agriculture for their raw materials. So providing raw materials, meaning if these kind of industries are not getting the raw materials, if agriculture is not providing the these kind of raw materials, then majority of the industries will not be there in our country. So providing raw materials to industries. So most of the industries, especially initially, now of course we have developed several capital goods industries, other types of industries also, all. But then initially to start with, and even today, most of the major industries in our country are of the category of agro based industries. They come under the category of agro based industries. So any industry that depends on agriculture for their raw materials, they are called as the agro-based industries. See, for example, you take cotton textiles. So I mean to put it, see there are 5 types of agro-based industries. First one, food and beverage. Second, you have the tobacco products. Then you have the third type, paper and wood products. Fourth, you have textiles, apparel, and footwear. And fifth one, they are the leather products and rubber products. So these are some of the categories of industries that either directly depend on agriculture or indirectly depend on agriculture. For example, say some of the examples you can say. So cotton textile, they directly depend, isn't it? Sugar industry, jute industry, vanaspati, etc. So some of the industries, they directly depend on agriculture for their raw materials, and some of the industries like flour mills, some other industry, they indirectly depend on agriculture. Whatever it is, most of the industries in our country are depending on agriculture for their raw materials. And this what is, and also there is something apart from this, there is something called as the food processing industry, which is also very very vital, or one of the main industries in our country, food processing industries, and also food processing industry. Now, what is the food processing industry? This is like a farm utility. So this is basically converting the raw material which is uh, obtained from the agricultural sector. So that raw material is processed into this food processing industry and made into a final good, made it into a edible one, made it into a finished good. Like it is like giving a farm utility to the particular commodity. So that is the food processing industry. That is, this is the one type of industry in the agricultural sector which is gaining lots and lots of importance currently. Okay, so see for example, like you have to convert the grain to flour. See this, here also there are different types. This comes under the primary food processing industry. This is just an example I'm giving you. Also there are different varieties. Why I'm explaining is, in this itself there are different types of industries. For that I'm explaining. So grain to flour, that is a primary food processing, and flour to bread. So from, you are getting the grain from the agricultural sector, and that is converted into flour, that is primary food processing. And then again that is converted into, if you're a bread in a commercial way, then it is a secondary, in a bakery and all, secondary food processing industry. And then the same thing, this bread you can make it as a processed food. Nowadays we are having no very like a, what do you say, ready to eat. You just purchase it from the supermarket, reheat it while we are watching the serials in the TV, Netflix, we eat, no? So that is ready to eat, or what you say, frozen foods. It's very very common nowadays, isn't it? So this is the tertiary food processing industry. So these are all the uh, commodities that are mostly in demand now, which is depending on agriculture. Okay, or some other example, oils, where you have to convert, take out oil from the oil seeds. And for example, you are making sausages from meat. So there are some other kinds of, secondary food processing industry. So basically, most of the uh, industries in our country, either they directly depend on agriculture or indirectly depend on agriculture. So if they are depending on the raw materials uh, from the agriculture, they are all called as the agro-based industry. So in other words, majority of the industries in our country also depending on agriculture for their survival, even for their establishment. So that is another importance of agriculture in our country. So in India also, initially we all started only with the all this, especially the cotton textile industry, sugar industry, jute industry. So once upon a time, only these were all the very famous established industries in our country. Over a period of time, only our industrial sector diversified, and we started establishing different varieties of commodities. But still, these agro-based industries in our country occupies one of the major role. I mean, they are the topmost industries in our industrial sector. Okay, so that is another importance of agriculture. Then the fourth one is the market for industrial goods. So any business, if it has to survive, they have to sell their commodities, they have to find the market. Okay, so unless they are finding the market, unless they are expanding their market, unless they are expanding their sales, it is not possible for them to survive. This all of us know, isn't it? So the industrial goods, where will they sell the commodities, where will they find the market, to sell their commodities. So we all know that in our country, rural areas are the ones that provides market for industrial goods. Why rural area provides or the industries depend upon rural areas to sell their commodities? Because nearly we all know that 70% of the population reside in rural areas depending on agriculture. So if the industries have to sell their commodities, then they have to find way to sell their commodities in the rural areas. So if the rural people have to purchase these commodities, then the purchasing power, or put it very simply, the income of the people in rural areas will increase. How it will increase? Only when agricultural production increases. Only with the agricultural sector in our country expands, people in the rural areas will get more and more of money income. Their purchasing power keeps on increasing, and then only they will be able to purchase the purchase the industrial commodities. So only when the industries sell their commodities in the rural areas, they will be able to survive. So again, indirectly, in this way also, the industries depend on the prosperity of the agricultural sector. Okay, that is another important. That is one advantage of having major percentage of the population reside in the rural areas. We have seen the other side, isn't it? 70% of the population live in rural areas, but 70% of the investment goes to the urban areas in the form of investment on industries. But this is the other side we are seeing now. Even though the investment is going on for the industries, but there the industries cannot sell their products there, because only the 30% of the population they are finding there. Their market for their products is only 30% there, but the remaining 70%, the market, they have to find it in the rural areas. So they are forced to increase the purchasing power. They are forced to increase the uh, money income of the rural people. In order to do that, the production in the agricultural sector must increase. Okay, so that is another importance of agriculture in our country. Then the next one is the another vital requirement for the development of the country, which is capital formation. So in order to increase the capital formation, it is agriculture, the development of agriculture in our country is a must. Now, what is the connection between capital formation and the development of agriculture? We all know that capital formation is a must for the economic development of a country. That is the savings and investment. So the country's savings and investment should keep on increasing. Then only the national income will keep on multiplying. So now what is the connection between the capital formation and the development of agriculture? See, the main advantage of agriculture is, see, the agriculture requires, one is less investment compared to the industrial sector. The investment uh, on agriculture, we don't need that much amount of investment on the agricultural sector. And also it has a favorable capital output ratio, that is better capital output ratio. This both compared to industries. Meaning what? Even though you make a small investment, so small investment on land, or small investment on labor, or small investment on capital, that is machinery. Okay, here capital I'm referring to machinery, but we will be able to get more output out of that land, more output out of that labor, more output out of that capital or machinery, compared to what we are getting the output from the industrial sector. Or in other words, you need, in order to get the same level of output, we need more amount of investment in the industrial sector. For example, if it is said that it is 4:4 in industrial sector, I'm just giving you an example. If it is 4:4 in the industrial sector, that means for you have to make 4 units of investment to make 4 units of output in the industrial sector. But in order to get the same 4 units of output in the agricultural sector, it is enough you make 1 unit of investment. So 1 unit of capital will give 4 units of output in the agricultural sector. But then at the same time, in the industrial sector, you have to make uh, 4 units of capital. That means what, we are using more and more amount of capital in the industrial sector. So what are the advantages we are getting now if we are investing on agriculture? So first advantage is, we are not, we are, with this we are, what we are able to do, we are able to save capital, isn't it? Anyway, we are all capital scarce countries, so we don't have that much amount of capital. So we are saving the capital. We are saving, or in other words, we are saving the scarce capital which is available in our country. That is one thing we are doing. And small investment, more output in the agricultural sector. So that more output will create surplus. So we are able to generate surplus from the agricultural sector. So now this surplus generated from the agricultural sector will lead to more and more amount of capital formation in the country, and that capital formation can be utilized for the development of industries in the country. Okay, so that is the advantage of uh, may having the capital formation in the agricultural sector. On the one hand, it requires lesser capital. With the lesser capital, it will be able to produce more amount of output, and with that amount of output, we will be able to generate surplus. With that amount of surplus, we will be getting more and more amount of capital which can be utilized for the development of industries in the country. Okay, so that is the another importance of agriculture in our country. Then the next importance of agriculture is provision of food security. Okay, now what is the problem we are having in our country? We all know that heavy population pressure. So heavy population, that directly leads to more demand for food grains. So if there is more demand for food grains, automatically there will be rise in the food inflation. There is rise in the prices of food grains. So if there is rise in the prices of, if there is a, if there is a rise in the prices of food grains, what will happen? There will, these are all the problem. There will not be any food security to the people. No food security to the poorer sections. Now, what is the meaning of food security? Food security means physical and economic availability of nutritious food grains at all times throughout the life to a person. That is the meaning of or his family. That is the meaning of food security. It is not that one day you have to have quality food grains you are able to eat, and tomorrow you are not sure. Either because the availability of food grains is not there, that is physical availability is not there, or economic availability, whether your money income will not be sufficient. That might be because of the shortage of food grains, or you are not you are belonging to the poorer category, so you don't have sufficient amount of money income. So because of these reasons, you do not know whether tomorrow you will be able to consume the same nutritious food grains. So that is a food security. So if the food prices in the country increases, so what will happen? The poorer sections of the population will not be able to consume those kind of commodities. So automatically they will be what they will consume. They will be able to consume only poor quality. They will not be able to consume the nutritious food grains. So they will be able to consume only the poor quality food grains, isn't it? So if they consuming the poor quality food grains, automatically there will be malnourished people in the country. See, according to United Nations and the Food and Agricultural Organizations, these are all the very common problems in our country. According to FAO and United Nations Organization, they have mentioned hunger, malnutrition, and underweight are the most common problems in our country. So even today, it is based on the survey, it has been found out that nearly 15% of the children in our country are malnourished. So why? Because there is no food security to majority of the sections of the population in our country. So in order to avoid that food security, and also if there is food security, what is the other things? So food security directly attacks the problem of poverty, isn't it? So if they why they are poor, how do you say they are poor? Because they don't they don't have sufficient amount of money income to purchase the food grains. They are not able to purchase the food grain. They are not able to consume the required amount of food grains. We have checked, isn't it? What is the nutritional absolute poverty? We know the meaning, isn't it? So if they are not having the sufficient amount of money income to consume required amount of calories in a day or a month, then automatically they are below the poverty line. So food security directly attacks the problem of poverty, or in other words, providing food security. So in order to have the food security to the majority of the sections of the population in the country, automatically the agricultural production in the country must increase. So it is said that 1% growth in agriculture is able to uh, relieve more effective in attacking the problem of poverty, 2 to 3 times more effective in attacking the problem of poverty than the same amount of investment in other sectors, that is the non-agricultural sectors. Okay, so food security, agriculture directly tackles the problem of poverty in the country. Okay, then the next is the what is the contribution of agriculture to our exports. So more, India is famous for certain products all over the world. For example, tea, sugar, oils, oil seeds, tobacco, spices. India has got the reputation. So in 1950-51, The share of agricultural exports was 70%. Out of the total exports, the share of agricultural exports was 70%. But of course, just like the other things, this percentage has come down in 2018-19 to 13%. This is mainly because of the exports from the other sectors, especially the IT exports. Again, I repeat, it is only in the percentage wise because of the development of other sectors exports, the share has come down. But still, India has got a major role in the exports of the country. Okay, so that is, and we are able to get sufficient amount of foreign exchange through the exports of agricultural commodities. And the last one, what are all the other importances of agriculture? So other importances, our transport earnings, transport, especially our Indian railways. So they depend on the movement of agricultural commodities from one state to another state. The banking sector in our country, the union budget, when the government is making the budget, the first preference is upon next to defense, the first preference is given to agricultural sector. And the general price level in the country, if the agriculture, if the food inflation happens, if there is a shortage of food grains, or if the price levels of the food grains increases, immediately it reflects in the general price level of the country. And if the country wants to make the policies, preparation of economic plans, first and foremost importance is given to agricultural sector, then only the other sector. And last but not the least, if you want to maintain the ecological balance, to maintain the biodiversity, and we keep on saying sustainable development, isn't it? Environmental protection and all. So if we want to make all this, then for all these reasons, agriculture is a must. Okay. So that's why even today, India is an agricultural country, and agriculture occupies one of the major roles, its most important sector in our country. Okay, so hope you have understood. So in next class, we'll check out what is the growth pattern of agriculture in our country, and even though India is an agricultural country, why the productivity in our country is low compared to the other countries. Okay, which we will check out in our next class. Okay, hope the concept is clear to all of you. So if you find this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe. So until my next class, next video, take care. Bye bye.